What good is this meeting going to do, Mai?
He has so many followers that if only you two would come together, our country would make great progress. You must see Kano. It's the best thing, Uncle.
But he's been in exile. Our government wouldn't accept him.
If only you two would come together, the government would have to accept
No,
him.
I don't trust Kano.
Please, Uncle, he is my husband.
But he believes in violence.
Not anymore.
Holly!
Every government has its Secret Service branch. America, CIA, France, Deuxième Bureau, England, MI5. NATO also has its own. A messy job? Well, that's when they usually call on me, or someone like me. Oh, yes. My name is Drake. John Drake. I was in London. The call came through after breakfast, which was unusual. My contact with the hush-hush branch of a government would, for some reason which I could never quite fathom, prefer to rouse me at 2 or 3 in the morning. The instructions were clear, sensible, and simple, which again was a welcome relief from the usual fox and hounds course which would be laid down for me to follow, all of it quite unnecessary. This time, the voice on the telephone, soft and cultured, merely asked if I would not come to 449 Wigmore Street. The caller mentioned the name of my chief in NATO. 449 Wigmore Street was another surprise. It was not the back of an innocent-looking bookshop or a house in the country surrounded by high iron fences. 449 was a genteel Victorian house on a genteel Victorian street.
Oh, good morning. Please come in, Mr. Drake.
Yeah.
I'm Aaron Nelson.
You're the man I spoke to on the phone?
That is correct. This way, please, Mr. Drake.
Sir Aaron Nelson. Good morning.
Mr. Drake, may I present Mr. Moses Amadou
How do you do?
and Professor Caddy Moma?
Professor Moma, Oriental Medicine at the university.
That is correct, Mr. Drake.
Will you please sit down, Mr. Drake?
Thank you.
I suggest we get on with it. I'm from the city of Victoria in Basiland. I assume you know what is happening there, Mr. Drake.
I know that you are an independent African state with teething problems.
If that was all, Mr. Drake.
Mr. Amadou refers to the murder of Mr. Ahali and the subsequent riots in Victoria.
The extremists are using the assassination to whip the people into a state of dangerous tension.
What do you want me to do?
First, Mr. Drake, we would like to show you something. We believe that once you have seen this, you'll agree to do as we ask.
That, Mr. Drake, is what is happening to Victoria. And this, we fear, is merely a prelude to a terrible statewide uprising. That is Thompson. He's the mainspring in this wave of violence. And we're certain that he is the agent of the exiled extremist Saul Kano. The situation is explosive, Mr. Drake. The government must tread softly. And Thompson knows that we cannot arrest him now.
Mr. Drake, we respected Mr. Ahali. The last thing we wished was his death. But now the blame has been put at our government's door. The people are divided against us.
That is why I came to London, to speak with Professor Moma and Sir Aaron. We have formed a committee to conduct an independent investigation, to find the truth and bring it to our people. We ask you to help us, sir. We ask you to come to Victoria.
Where is Saul Kano now?
He was exiled 3 years ago, but we think he has returned into the country secretly.
Do you have anything that I might go on?
You'll be briefed in Victoria. Once there, your contact will be a Mr. Daniels.
I must warn you, Mr. Drake. The opposition is aware of what we are trying to do.
And they have agents in Victoria who will try to stop you.
I don't mind a certain amount of trouble.
The situation being as it is, Mr. Daniels will not be able to contact you openly. But this £1/2 note will lead you to him. You will take rooms at the Prince Albert Hotel in Victoria.
Prince Albert Hotel. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I checked into the Prince Albert, went to my room. Victoria seemed to be blanketed by that musky odor which is produced by mass hatred and fear. There was no call from a Mr. Daniels. The telephone directory listed 27 men named Daniels, but Daniels, well, wouldn't be his name anyway. I needed a drink.
Yes, sir. Your pleasure, sir.
Gin and tonic, please.
Yes, sir. 3 shillings, sir. You are a stranger in Victoria, sir.
Yes.
Many amazing sights of interest to see in Victoria. Also, most intriguing.
Yes.
Perhaps you would like to see some of most intriguing. Oh, yes. I would suggest so, sir.
Perhaps.
I could suggest expert guide. Also, most experienced.
Another gin.
Yes, sir. That will be 2 shillings, sir. Expert guide at number 11, Rhodes Boulevard. He will be in this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, sir. We would like to welcome you, but you're not a member.
Would you like to make me a member?
Would you like to become a member? I'm the president. Come on in.
Am I walking into a lion's den?
A lion's den? What you need is a Daniel. Come along with me. Not that way, this way. Says he's walked into a lion's den.
You must forgive me, Mr. Drake. I am not well. Please come in. Get that chair, Mr. Drake. Bring it here and sit by my side. Please do not interrupt me, Mr. Drake. I am ill and I'm weary, and I must conserve what little energy I have left. I will try to give it all to you briefly. First, why do you find me in a place like this? Because I have a high priority number on Saul Cano's assassination list.
Saul Cano. But he's across the border in exile, isn't he?
Safe from justice. But he still directs his terrorist in Victoria. His agent here is a man called Thompson. Now, the killing of Mr. Ahali. My information is that Mr. Ahali was lured to a meeting with Saul Cano by a woman.
Do you know who this woman was?
No.
It must have been someone that Ahali trusted.
Yes.
Can't you suggest a possibility?
Cano and his man Thompson have called for a mass demonstration. Tens of thousands of my people from the villages and the bush country are pouring into Victoria. Within 3 days, this city and this country will witness a horror such as cannot be imagined. The committee has seen fit to send you here. Find and prove to the people who really killed Ahali. Can you do that in 3 days?
Mr. Daniels, can't you at least make a suggestion?
Yes, go back to London.
Not until I've spoken with Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. I'm obliged.
What is your business?
You wouldn't have me brought to you if you didn't know my business.
I only know what I have been told. And what I have been told, you have rumored.
Listen, I'm a very busy man. I have no time for nibbling around the edges. My business is guns, selling them to people who have no right to have them, wholesale. Your business is to put your hands on them, wholesale. Do we deal?
What kind of weapons do you have?
Oh, yeah. What kind of money do you have?
If the guns are there, the money is no problem. It is possible I can make a deal.
Oh, you can't make a deal. But a deal can be made with Saul Cano.
How do I know you're telling me the truth?
You don't.
How do I know you are what you represent yourself to be?
You don't know that either. In fact, you don't know anything. And that's the way it has to be until I speak with Cano.
I will arrange a meeting with Cano.
Good boy.
Your business?
From Thompson.
He said you must say.
The hills are purple.
All right, come with me. Sir, he has come. He has said what Thompson told him to say.
Good evening, Mr. Drake. What will you drink?
Gin and tonic.
Did you have a good trip?
Very good, thank you, Mr. Cano.
Wonderful. You can't imagine how pleasant it is to have a bit of civilized society for a change. To your very good health, Mr. Drake.
And yours, Mr. Cano.
Oh, forgive me. Please be comfortable. Sit here.
Thank you.
Then we can talk.
You must have spent a great deal of time in England.
5 years. Oxford, Christchurch. First in philosophy. And you, Mr. Drake?
Oh, nothing quite so laudatory.
You have the ring of a university man.
Only for a brief time. I was restless.
I like restless men. The world has need of restless men. They usually know how to find the right things at the right time.
Such as?
Such as the topic at hand, Mr. Drake.
Oh?
Guns. Maya, this is Mr. Drake. May I present Madame Cano?
How do you do, Mr. Drake?
How do you do?
Mr. Drake is going to be spending a few days with us, Maya.
And we shall do our best to make you comfortable.
Thank you, Mrs. Cano.
Yes, we're still forced to live a rather crude existence. However, not for long.
Would you care to rest before dinner, Mr. Drake?
Well, it's been a long trip.
Oh, come, I'll show you to your room. One of the boys will bring your bag.
Thank you, Mrs. Cano.
So I don't imagine that political philosophies have any influence on your activities.
I find myself influenced by the greatest of all philosophies, Mr. Cano. High bid.
I am delighted to hear that, Mr. Drake. Delighted. I always trust the man who honestly looks out for himself. It's the unrealistic idealist, I fear.
Coffee, Mr. Drake?
Thank you. And it is the idealist that I prefer to do business with.
But of course, he has no real sense of material values. You will excuse me for a moment.
Would you like to hear some music? This is your first visit to this part of Africa, Mr. Drake.
It is.
What do you think of it?
I don't permit myself to voice an opinion on my host country.
Yes, I understand. There's so much to be done.
The evolutionary process from prehistoric times moves slowly, very slowly. From north to south, from east to west. It takes time. But the time always arrives.
And in their tens of thousands, from remote villages in the interior, from the even remoter bush country, they continue to pour into Victoria. Tent cities have been set up on the outskirts of Victoria. Night-long council fires can be seen. Ritual drums can be clearly heard on the night air. The area is ringed by troops and police.
You're troubled, Mrs. Kano.
They are my people, Mr. Drake.
And Saul Kano is trying to help them to avenge the killing of Mr. Ahali?
Don't tell me it wasn't necessary to kill Trinidad. Still don't tell me that. Mr. Thompson is just in from Victoria. While passing through our village here, he got caught up in some action.
Action, huh?
You better get that looked after.
Oh, nothing. It's a scratch.
What was the trouble?
He was just happening on the scene.
Yes. Our people tried to leave for the demonstration in Victoria. Police tried to stop them. No more police. They're lying in the jungle for the hyenas.
Yeah. They're not particular what cut of the meat they feed on. Are they?
I'm now ready to talk business, Mr. Drake.
Yes. You said I cannot make a deal with you, only Mr. Kano. All right? You're now talking to Mr. Kano.
You said that you are prepared to deliver arms in wholesale quantities.
Yes, in wholesale quantities.
No, I did not say that.
What? In my office, you said... He said to me...
No, I said that I was prepared to talk about delivery. That's an entirely different thing.
Mr. Drake, talk.
I represent a syndicate which has come into possession of a certain number of automatic rifles and ammunition, a certain number of Sten guns and ammunition, a certain number of grenades, and we might also be prepared to deliver a certain number of armored vehicles.
Details.
At least 10,000 of each of the varieties of guns, at least 25,000 grenades, and at least 20 of the armored vehicles.
How much?
1 million United States dollars.
That is a lot of money, Mr. Drake.
That's why you want it.
The equipment you list, it could not cost half that on the open market.
I know, but you're dealing on the black market, and my syndicate faces very grave risks.
What is the origin of these arms?
Well, they're guns, they're efficient, they kill. That's all you need to know, isn't it?
Where is the equipment now stored?
In Egypt.
Where in Egypt?
In, Egypt.
All right, Mr. Drake. I will deposit to your name in the Afro State Bank $500,000, and upon delivery of the...
No, you will deposit $1 million, but it will be in a British bank, and then I deliver it.
Very well, Mr. Drake. I will agree. I must agree. But I must have some security. And the only security I'm willing to accept is you. Yes, you. You will remain here until the equipment is delivered. And if it is not delivered in a reasonable time... Do you agree, Mr. Drake?
Yes, I agree.
To your continued good health, Mr. Drake.
And to yours, Mr. Kano.
Now, if you will excuse me, I have some business to discuss with Mr. Thompson.
Startled me.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cano.
I must have been lost in thought.
Yes, I can understand your preoccupation. There's a great deal to think about, isn't there?
Mr. O'Holly is my uncle. My mother's brother.
You have my sympathies, Mrs. Cano.
He was a wonderful man. Kind, gentle. At the end, he continued to preach love and understanding.
Mrs. Cano, your people are convinced that Mr. O'Holly was murdered by your government. Do you believe that, Mrs. Cano? I don't.
Who are you? You didn't come here to sell guns.
No, Mrs. Cano, you're quite right. I didn't come here to sell guns. I came here to learn the truth about Mr. O'Holly. I think that I now know that truth. You were used, weren't you, Mrs. Cano? You were used by your husband. He convinced you that he'd changed his ideas about violence. He persuaded you to arrange a meeting between himself and Mr. O'Holly. At that meeting, your husband ordered Mr. O'Holly's murder. Listen, Mrs. Cano, if the people don't learn the truth and learn it from you, you will be responsible for the death of thousands of your innocent people. You heard the radio broadcast, didn't you?
No, nothing will happen. But he's dead. I cannot bring him back. Nothing will happen. The people will
It's
go
already
over.
started to happen, Mrs. Cano, in your own village. I will take you there now.
Why?
I want to show you something.
But how can I go? I'm always watched.
Look, I've given your husband and Mr. Thompson something to occupy them for many hours. We have time. Will you come with me, please, quietly? How far now?
Around that bend there.
Oh, look at it, Mrs. Connor, look at it! That is what your husband and Mr. Thompson have made your people do. It's only a small sample of what's to come.
What must I do? I know. Of course I know. I must tell the truth. I must go to Victoria before it's too late and tell them that my husband murdered O'Holly.
Yes, Mrs. Connor. You must tell the truth. Bridge to Victoria.
There. Well, after him, man.
As soon as her present statement was made public, the people dispersed quietly and went back to their homes. No further lives were lost, Mr. Drake. They will never know how much they owe to you.
They don't owe it to me, Mr. Amadou. They owe it to her.
We cannot pay you adequately, Mr. Drake. But with the help of Mr. Daniels, we've managed to collect this to present to you.
There are some things for which a man does not accept money. I am sure that your people can use this to better purpose than I. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake.